The problem of anger, how to use the power of your dark side. We are lived by powers we pretend to understand. Of all the forces that shape our lives, our emotions stand out both in their ability to dramatically influence our well-being and in the mysterious ways they do this. Anger. That fiery tempest that surges through our veins is perhaps the most potent and misunderstood of these emotions. It's a force that can destroy relationships, shatter peace, and leave us feeling hollowed out and spent. Yet, it's also a wellspring of energy, a catalyst for change, and a guardian of our boundaries. How can we reconcile these seemingly contradictory aspects of anger? How can we harness its power without being consumed by its flames? To begin this exploration, we must first acknowledge the dual nature of anger. It is neither inherently good nor evil, but rather a tool, a powerful one at that which can be wielded for destruction or creation. The problem arises not from the emotion itself, but from our relationship with it. Many of us have been taught to fear anger, to suppress it, to view it as a weakness or a flaw in our character. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if anger, when properly understood and channeled, could be a source of strength, clarity, and positive change? Consider for a moment the last time you felt truly angry. What triggered it? How did it manifest in your body? In your thoughts? In your actions? Now, imagine if you could harness that intense energy and direct it towards a constructive purpose. This is the alchemy we seek, the transformation of raw, volatile anger into focused, purposeful action. But before we can master this alchemy, we must first understand the nature of our anger. It's often said that anger is a secondary emotion, one that arises to protect us from more vulnerable feelings like hurt, fear, or disappointment. When we feel threatened, whether physically or emotionally, anger rushes in like a bodyguard, ready to defend us. This protective function is valuable, but problems arise when we allow anger to become our default response to discomfort or conflict. To truly understand our anger, we must be willing to look beneath its surface, to explore the tender underbelly of our psyche that it seeks to protect. This requires courage and self-reflection. It demands that we ask ourselves difficult questions. What am I really afraid of? What wound am I trying to protect? What unmet need is crying out for attention? As we delve deeper into these questions, we begin to see that our anger often stems from a place of vulnerability. It's a reaction to feeling powerless, disrespected, or threatened. By acknowledging these underlying feelings, we can start to address the root causes of our anger rather than merely treating its symptoms. But this is not to say that we should aim to eliminate anger from our emotional repertoire. Far from it. Anger, when properly channeled, can be a powerful force for good. It can motivate us to fight injustice, to stand up for ourselves and others, to make necessary changes in our lives and in the world around us. The key lies in learning to use anger as a tool rather than allowing it to use us. So how do we begin this process of transformation? The first step is awareness. We must learn to recognize anger as it arises, to feel its heat before it erupts into flames. This requires a level of mindfulness that many of us are unaccustomed to. It means paying attention to the subtle signs in our bodies, the tightening of muscles, the quickening of breath, the surge of adrenaline that signal the onset of anger. Once we've developed this awareness, we can begin to create space between the trigger and our response. In this space lies our power to choose. We can ask ourselves, is this anger serving me? Is it proportionate to the situation? How can I channel this energy in a way that aligns with my values and goals? This pause, this moment of reflection, is where the alchemy begins. It's where we start to transmute the raw energy of anger into something more refined and purposeful. But make no mistake, this is not an easy process. It requires practice, patience, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. As we embark on this journey of transformation, we must also confront the cultural and societal messages we've internalized about anger. Many of us, particularly those socialized as women, have been taught that anger is unbecoming, that it makes us less likable or less feminine. Others, often those socialized as men, have been told that anger is the only acceptable outlet for emotional expression. These societal expectations create a complex web of shame and repression around our anger. They can lead us to bottle up our emotions until they explode, or to lash out in ways that damage our relationships and our sense of self. Breaking free from these patterns requires us to challenge these ingrained beliefs and to forge a new, healthier relationship with our anger. As we continue this exploration, I invite you to reflect on your own relationship with anger. How has it shaped your life? What beliefs do you hold about anger, and where did they come from? Are these beliefs serving you, or are they holding you back from fully engaging with this powerful aspect of your emotional life? The phoenix rising, transforming anger's flames into wings of empowerment. As we delve deeper into the labyrinth of our anger, we begin to uncover its hidden potential, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Our transformed anger can become a source of renewal and strength. But how do we initiate this metamorphosis? The key lies in developing emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our emotions effectively. This skill is not innate. It's cultivated through practice and patience. When it comes to anger, emotional intelligence allows us to respond rather than react, to choose our actions consciously rather than being driven by impulse. One powerful technique for developing this skill is mindfulness meditation. By regularly practicing mindfulness, we sharpen our ability to observe our thoughts and emotions without immediately attaching to them or acting on them. This creates a crucial pause between stimulus and response, giving us the space to choose how we want to engage with our anger. Consider this the next time you feel anger rising. Instead of immediately lashing out or suppressing it, try to observe it with curiosity. Where do you feel it in your body? What thoughts accompany it? What's beneath the anger? Fear, hurt, frustration. This practice of curious observation can diffuse the immediate intensity of the emotion and provide valuable insights into its origins. Another powerful tool in our alchemical process is reframing. This involves consciously shifting our perspective on the anger-inducing situation. Instead of viewing it as a threat or an attack, can we see it as a challenge or an opportunity for growth? This shift in mindset can transform our anger from a destructive force into a motivating one. For instance, if we're angry about an injustice, rather than stewing in rage, we can ask ourselves, how can I use this energy to create positive change? This reframing allows us to channel our anger into constructive action, turning it into a catalyst for personal and societal transformation. It's crucial to remember that this process is not about suppressing or denying our anger. Bottled up anger is like a pressure cooker. It will eventually explode, often causing more damage than if we had addressed it directly. Instead, we're learning to acknowledge our anger, understand its message, and direct its energy purposefully. As we practice these techniques, we may find that our relationship with anger begins to shift. Rather than fearing or avoiding it, we start to see it as a valuable source of information and energy. We become curious about what our anger is trying to tell us, what boundaries it's protecting, what values it's upholding. This shift in perspective allows us to tap into the wisdom of our anger. Yes, wisdom. For anger, when properly understood, can be a wise teacher. It can show us where our boundaries have been crossed, where our values are being compromised, where change is needed in our lives or in the world around us. But with this wisdom comes responsibility. As we learn to harness the power of our anger, we must also cultivate compassion for ourselves and for others. We must remember that everyone struggles with their own emotional challenges, and that often the anger we encounter in others is a reflection of their own pain and fear. The crucible of transformation, forging strength from the fires of rage. As we continue our journey into the heart of anger, we find ourselves standing before a crucible of transformation. This crucible represents the challenging process of confronting our anger, understanding its roots, and reshaping it into a force for positive change. It's a process that demands courage, patience, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us. One of the most powerful tools we have in this process is self-reflection. By regularly taking time to examine our anger triggers and responses, we can begin to identify patterns and underlying issues. Ask yourself, what situations consistently spark my anger? What unresolved wounds or unmet needs might be fueling these reactions? This introspection can be uncomfortable, but it's essential for growth and healing. Consider keeping an anger journal. Each time you experience a surge of anger, take a moment to write down what triggered it, how you felt physically and emotionally, and how you responded. Over time, this practice can reveal valuable insights into your anger patterns and help you develop more effective coping strategies. Another crucial aspect of our transformation is learning to express anger in healthy ways. Many of us have been taught that anger is something to be suppressed or avoided, but this approach often leads to resentment, passive aggression, or explosive outbursts. Instead, we need to learn how to communicate our anger assertively and respectfully. This might involve using I statements to express how you feel without blaming or attacking others. For example, instead of saying "you always ignore me," try "I feel hurt and frustrated when I don't feel heard in our conversations." This approach allows you to express your anger while opening the door for constructive dialogue. It's also important to remember that anger doesn't always require an immediate response. Sometimes the wisest course of action is to step back, take a few deep breaths, and allow the initial surge of emotion to subside before addressing the situation. This pause can prevent us from saying or doing things we might later regret. As we learn to work with our anger more skillfully, we may find that it becomes a powerful ally in our personal growth and in our efforts to create positive change in the world. Anger can be a motivating force, pushing us to stand up against injustice, to fight for what we believe in, and to protect those who are vulnerable. Consider the great social movements throughout history. Many of them were fueled by a righteous anger at systemic injustices. The key is to channel this anger into constructive action rather than destructive rage. As the author Audre Lorde wisely noted, anger used does not destroy, hatred does. But as we harness the power of our anger, we must also cultivate compassion both for ourselves and for others. It's easy to get caught up in the heat of anger and forget our shared humanity. By balancing our anger with compassion, we can address conflicts and injustices more effectively, seeking solutions that benefit everyone rather than simply seeking to punish or defeat those we perceive as wrongdoers. This balance of anger and compassion is not easy to achieve. It requires constant practice and self-awareness. We will make mistakes along the way, and that's okay. The important thing is to learn from these missteps and to keep striving for growth and understanding. As we work to transform our relationship with anger, we may find that other aspects of our lives begin to change as well. Our relationships might improve as we learn to communicate more effectively. We might feel more empowered to pursue our goals and stand up for our values. We might even find a deeper sense of inner peace, knowing that we can handle our emotions skillfully rather than being at their mercy. Remember, the goal is not to eliminate anger from our lives entirely. Anger, like all emotions, serves a purpose. It's a signal that something is wrong, that our boundaries have been crossed, or that our values are being compromised. By learning to listen to this signal without being overwhelmed by it, we can use our anger as a guide for positive action and personal growth. As you continue on this path of transformation, be patient with yourself. Changing deeply ingrained emotional patterns takes time and effort. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small it might seem. Each time you respond to anger with mindfulness and intention rather than reactive impulse, you're taking a step towards mastery of your emotional life. In the crucible of transformation, we are not seeking to destroy our anger, but to refine it. Like a blacksmith working with raw iron, we are learning to shape our anger into a tool of strength and purpose. This process may be challenging, even painful at times, but the result, a more balanced, empowered, and authentic self, is well worth the effort. The philosopher's stone alchemizing anger into wisdom and power. As we approach the final stage of our journey through the landscape of anger, we stand at the threshold of a profound realization. The transformation we've been seeking, the ability to transmute our anger into a force for good, is not merely a skill to be learned, but a fundamental shift in our understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. It's akin to the alchemist's quest for the philosopher's stone, a mythical substance capable of turning base metals into gold. In our case, we're learning to turn the base metal of raw anger into the gold of wisdom and empowerment. This transformation requires us to embrace a paradox. To truly master our anger, we must first fully accept it. This means acknowledging anger as a natural and valuable part of our emotional repertoire, rather than something to be feared or eliminated. When we resist or deny our anger, we give it power over us. But when we accept it, we open the door to understanding and ultimately control. Consider for a moment, what would it feel like to welcome your anger as you would an old friend? To greet it with curiosity rather than fear or shame. This shift in perspective can be liberating, allowing us to explore our anger without being consumed by it. As we cultivate this acceptance, we begin to see our anger not as an enemy to be vanquished, but as a messenger carrying important information. Each surge of anger is an opportunity to learn something about ourselves, our values, and our needs. When we approach our anger with this mindset, we transform it from a destructive force into a tool for self-discovery and growth. But this acceptance doesn't mean giving free rein to our anger. Instead, it allows us to engage with it consciously and purposefully. We can learn to sit with our anger, to feel its heat without being burned by it. This practice of mindful engagement with our emotions is at the heart of emotional intelligence. As we develop this skill, we may find that our anger becomes more nuanced. Rather than experiencing it as an all-consuming rage, we might notice subtle variations: frustration, irritation, indignation. This increased emotional granularity gives us more options for responding to challenging situations. Moreover, as we become more adept at working with our anger, we may discover that it can coexist with other emotions. We can be angry and compassionate at the same time. We can feel righteous indignation while also maintaining empathy for those who have wronged us. This emotional complexity is a hallmark of wisdom and maturity. One powerful practice for developing this ability is loving kindness meditation. This ancient technique involves cultivating feelings of goodwill towards ourselves and others, even those who have angered or hurt us. By regularly practicing loving kindness, we can create a foundation of compassion that helps us navigate our anger more skillfully. As we continue to refine our relationship with anger, we may find that it becomes a source of clarity and strength. Like a sword forged in fire, our anger, when properly tempered, can cut through confusion and help us see what truly matters to us. It can give us the courage to stand up for our values, to protect the vulnerable, and to fight for positive change in the world. But with this power comes responsibility. As we harness the energy of our anger, we must be mindful of its impact on others. We must learn to express our anger in ways that are firm yet respectful, assertive yet compassionate. This balanced approach allows us to address conflicts and injustices effectively without perpetuating cycles of hostility and retaliation. Remember, the goal is not to become immune to anger, but to develop a wise and skillful relationship with it. There will still be times when we feel angry, and that's okay. The difference is that now, instead of being overwhelmed by our anger or acting it out unconsciously, we can choose how to engage with it. As we near the end of our exploration, I invite you to reflect on your own journey with anger. How has your relationship with this powerful emotion changed? What insights have you gained? What challenges remain? Remember that this is a lifelong journey of growth and learning. Each experience of anger is an opportunity to deepen our understanding and refine our skills. In conclusion, let us return to the metaphor of alchemy. Just as the alchemists of old sought to transmute base metals into gold, we have been learning to transform our raw anger into wisdom, compassion, and purposeful action. This is the true philosopher's stone, the ability to take the challenges and difficulties of life and turn them into opportunities for growth and positive change. As you move forward from this exploration, carry with you the knowledge that your anger, far from being a weakness or a flaw, is a powerful ally on your journey of self-discovery and personal growth. Treat it with respect, engage with it mindfully, and allow it to guide you towards a deeper understanding of yourself and the world around you. In doing so, you will have mastered one of life's most profound alchemical processes, the transformation of anger into wisdom and empowerment.